Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
What, you didn't like it?
Let's go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, my name is Sid Part 2, and actually no, that's not my name. That's my username. My username is Sid Part 2.
Kind of your name.
My actual name is Ian, and I'm joined today by Steve Baxey, whose username is Steve Baxey.
That it is. So I'm not a liar, Ian.
Yeah, you're right. I just lie to people, man. I just fucking lie to people. Oh, by the way, I think you're a very attractive person. Anyway, so, Steve, what exactly are we discussing today?
Today we are discussing a Tom Cruise movie, Jerry Maguire. And this seemed to come out of left field when I first picked it because it was just in my queue. But there's actually something very particular about this movie that I want to talk about. And we'll get to that after we just get through this generally.
Okay. So let me just start by asking. I'm going to try to reserve my thoughts, but I have a feeling everyone knows by the tone of my voice and questions what I'm thinking and feeling right now. So Steve, what made you decide to choose this? Was it just the Netflix queue? Or what made you put it in your queue, I guess?
Okay. The thing about this being in my queue is that I heard it had a really strange reputation. So it was on Netflix, I decided to add it, and then I looked at the description. And this is essentially one of those, a lot of these came out in the 80s and early 2000s and 90s. Really successful guy, loses his job, and then discovers the true meaning of yada yada, whatever, hitsy. And that's essentially this movie. That's what Jersey Girl was. There's a lot of those movies. But what's interesting about this is that it's a sports movie. And it's a very particular human sports movie. And part of why I wanted to pick this and talk about this is that I can safely bet that most geeks are not sports guys. And I think I'd be safe in that assessment. But there is kind of a place for sports in geek culture, isn't there?
I mean, maybe.
Because I feel like this movie almost makes a case for it. Because it does some things with sports that's almost on an idea level.
Okay, let me get some thoughts out here.
Okay. I'm not saying this movie's good or bad or anything. It's just what made me interested.
Okay. So I'm not a Tom Cruise fan.
Neither am I. I hate him.
Oh, I don't hate him. I just feel sorry for anyone that's in a cult.
He's just not a good actor. I'm sorry. He's not at all.
Okay. No, it's just, so I'm not a Tom Cruise fan, and what also makes watching particularly 90s Tom Cruise movies awkward for me is he looks so much like my brother in some scenes. It's like that scene where he's standing above the hockey player's hospital bed. Oh my god, it's my fucking brother in a suit.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, if his hair's spiked out or anything, looks exactly like my brother. It's so fucked up.
I gotta find the movie where Tom Cruise has spiky hair.
Well, that scene, his hair's kind of not. It's still got that flat look, but it's got a little bit of a spike to it because it's wet or whatever. But anyway, so this movie was so bad. God damn, this was so boring. And
let me ask
cliche
you this. Was it bad in the sense that you don't like these kinds of movies?
Yes, but it was also bad in the sense of, like, I saw everything coming from a mile away. And I was like, I kept waiting for it to do something I wasn't expecting. And it didn't. Ever. Like, it almost did. And then it didn't.
Yeah.
Like, and it did this weird thing where it wanted me to, like, I didn't know who I was supposed to sympathize with at any point. Because, like, so he shows in the first couple minutes that he's a complete awful, asshole, horrible human being. And then he writes his thing to turn it all around. And I'm like, okay, so I'm starting to sympathize and get behind this guy. And then he immediately regrets that decision. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm supposed to feel bad for him for doing the right thing. And that's a little weird, but okay. And then he goes crazy, and then he starts getting drunk and acting like an asshole, and then, like, so I'm wondering if I'm supposed to sympathize with the athletes, but then all the athletes that he calls act like total fucking douchebags and make me want them to have concussions. Well, no, because, like, the first couple minutes of the movie, it's all like, oh, well, we should be better to our athletes because they deserve better. And then every person he calls stabs him in the back. It's like, no, they clearly don't deserve better because they don't care just as much as you didn't care.
That's part of that movie is that there's a very clear cynicism in the way the world works. And it's not so much that people are better than that as much as people perpetuate it. And so if one person changes it, then maybe everyone wouldn't be assholes. Because
that's
not
what
when
happens.
They matters.
That's not what happens, though.
Well, I mean, that is kind of what happens, though. I mean, everyone's an asshole, and someone gets hurt, and everyone suddenly feels differently. But they can't rationalize that on a day-to-day, and that's kind of the journey he goes on in the movie.
No, because I don't feel anything for Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character when he gets hurt.
Well, neither do I. But, I mean, ultimately, that's what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, it just felt too manipulative to me. It's like, honestly, it is like any other chick flick in a lot of ways.
Because it is. I mean, this is that movie that sort of started that and made everyone like, hey, Tom Cruise is the best boyfriend ever kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like, when he gets hurt, it's like everyone slows down, the music stops and everything. I'm like, well, he's gonna get up, for one, but two, I don't care that he's hurt, because the whole point of this movie is he needs to stop being such a fucking asshole and stop being so, like, self-important. And then what does he do when he does get up and he is okay? He goes and celebrates. It's all self-important.
Yeah, he never has his character arc. Tom Cruise's character does, but it's not necessarily the most fluid or sympathetic one.
Well, it's that, and, like, they try to spell it out, but also don't seem to know where they're going with it at points.
See, I don't think it's not that they don't know where they're going with it. It's that it's like you said, they spell it out too much, and it doesn't ultimately work because A, Tom Cruise can't really sell it, and B, we're not with him. I mean, we get what he's saying, but we're not behind him.
Yeah.
Because I mean, his mission statement thing is all fine and good, but it would have been even better if we actually read what the fuck he said.
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. I mean, I guess the idea is it's all summarized with less clients, less money, or whatever that line was.
Yeah, but our mission statements are traditionally only supposed to be a couple sentences to a paragraph. He should have just read it.
Fair enough. No, it's just no, because then they couldn't use it as a plot device. If, no one can read this, but it's my wife's secret, like, look into my soul. And I don't know, because he writes the thing, and then he spends, like, the rest of the movie regretting that he wrote it, and not wanting to stand by it at all.
Yeah, but, okay, I don't think that's a problem. I think that's the point.
No, it's a problem because, like, why did you have him write it in the first place?
See, I think that's where you kind of missed it, is he wrote it because he had a moment of clarity. But the moment of clarity didn't stick. It's only there in tragedy, and then people lose it. And that's where the cynicism is. That's what the whole movie's about, is that you get a moment of clarity, but it takes a lot more than that to stick with it. And so he's regretting it the entire movie, and wishes he never did it. But ultimately, he has to realize what he did was the right thing at the end.
I can see that, but I don't know. It's a weird thing to do, to have your character, like, say, this is what I believe, and then spend the rest of the movie saying, no, I don't believe that. That was such a horrible idea.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the point, you know? It's a matter of they didn't execute it well, but that's the point that they were doing the whole time.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree with that. That's the point, but the problem is they didn't execute it well, and, like, 3 or 4 times I stopped this movie just to see how much longer I had left.
It's overly long, I'll give you that. It should have been, like, 30 minutes shorter.
Yeah, it's so fucking long, and it just doesn't stop, and it keeps... Like, I guess the biggest problem I have with it is it keeps going over the same ground.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. There's entire sequences that don't need to be there.
Just everything with her getting ready to move away, I'm like, what was the point of that? Just so you could have him get married? I'm like, he's already fairly committed and everything.
The hipster babysitter was not necessary.
That and, like, you made Jazz a joke, so immediately you do not have my favor.
Yes.
Like, I was legitimately pissed off when they made Jazz into a joke. I was like, fuck you
Although,
guys.
on that note, I do think the dialogue is actually pretty good.
Like, which scene in particular, or are you just talking about overall?
Just overall. I mean, this is the movie that got that line of "You had me at hello." Like, that's a good line.
Oh, I thought that was a reference. I didn't realize that this was that movie.
Yeah, this is the movie. I mean, show me the money. You had me at hello. What was the other thing? There was one other line. You complete me. All those lines are basically from this movie.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the dialogue is good.
No, it's not, because those are all, like... I guess they're not cliches because they created them.
But they created them because they were catchy.
It's not just that, it's empty words.
It's empty words because the story doesn't execute them, but just on paper they're good lines.
Maybe.
I mean, like, you had me at hello, that's a good line.
No. I'm sorry, I cannot put my support behind that sentence, Steve.
Are you doing that, though, because you've seen the movie in context and so you can't escape that?
No, because before I saw the movie, I would have thought that was an awful line.
But you think that's an awful line because it's cliche now, and it wasn't when it came out.
I don't know, there's just something about it, like, one, the possessive nature of relationships is something I tend to shy away from anyway. Had me, nah, I don't like that.
I don't know, I feel like you're nitpicking that line now, because that's not what it is at all. Like, just to say you had me?
I don't know.
Come on. I mean, you gotta admit that's a nitpick of the line. You had me. You had me is such a typical phrase.
Fair enough, but still, like, I don't know, just, I immediately roll my eyes at the line, and if you want to make the argument that it was around before it was a cliche, that's fine, that's a fair argument, but at the same time, there has to be something said for sticking power, and not making your... Like, there's a reason that I roll my eyes at it, and that it became a cliche. It's because when you think about it, it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
No, I mean, it didn't become a cliche because it didn't make any sense. It became a cliche because everyone used it.
Well, no, like, here's the thing. You had me at hello, but that doesn't make any sense, because he says hello right when he walks in and all that stuff. But, like, they had just gone through this whole thing of... You can't be alone, so you're just afraid of being alone, so you just come to me because you like me, and it's more about you than it is about loving me. And so having her at hello is not good enough.
Well, okay, right before he comes in, she says that he's not a good guy, but she still loves him. And so just the fact that he came over was going to affect her regardless of whether or not it was a good decision for her. So it makes sense.
I can't believe we're arguing about this, but I disagree.
But I mean, what you're saying doesn't follow from the context it showed up.
Well, no, because like she has this whole breakup scene, which comes way too late in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I know she has a breakup scene, but the scene right before he shows up and that line is exchanged transitions into it perfectly.
No, because wait, the last thing she says before he shows up is men are the enemy or something like that.
Yeah, she says men are the enemy, but I love the enemy. And then the enemy walks in and she still loves him, so it didn't matter what he was going to say.
Well, then that completely contradicts her character point from earlier.
Yes, but still, the point is that the line, it's not that the line doesn't make sense, it's the context in which it's in. As in this movie. As this movie doesn't make it work, but it's not a bad line.
I disagree. I think it's an eye roller no matter what.
You wouldn't have said that in 1996.
In 1996, I was 6 years old and you were 2.
I know, but again, you wouldn't have said that in 1996.
You're right. I would have not watched this movie in 1996 because it's a mommy movie.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those really terrible romantic comedies, but there's some certain stuff I want to get to later that we'll get to after we cover the movie in general.
Okay, well, no, it's just, like, there's a reason the line's a cliche beyond that it was just overused. Cliches, besides being overused, are empty, and not just because they're overused.
Cliches aren't empty. Because the whole, the good guy and the bad guy are the two sides of the same coin is a cliche. So that's not empty. That's an idea that's just overexposed and needs more than what it has by itself.
I guess, but I don't know. I find cliches to just be empty, not simply because they're overused, but because people just don't put enough thought into them themselves.
Yeah, but by what you said, they're not empty. It's that they require more than just saying them.
I think cliches are things you say just because it might sound kind of good, but it doesn't mean anything. I took a creative writing class at one point, and the professor, who was a poet laureate, and I swear he must have written a poem of cliches just to make this point, but he talked for like 2 minutes, all in cliches and, sentence connectors.
Yeah.
And by about 3 sentences in, you had no idea what the fuck he was saying anymore. He was talking about nothing because all he was using was cliches. And it was to prove the point that cliches mean nothing. Everyone thinks they have a vague idea about what's going on when they hear a cliche or what's being sent across, but when you continue to use cliches, they completely fall apart, and it shows that you end up communicating nothing in the end. They're filler sentences.
Have you ever heard the
that
song
just
"You're the
happen
Best"?
to sound good. What?
Have you ever heard the song "You're the Best" from the Karate Kid?
No.
Okay.
Wait, you're the best around, and no one's going to keep it down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you sit down and listen to that song, read the lyrics, it's literally nothing but cliches. Every line is a cliche. And it's hilarious when you think about it in context. Like, wow, it's nothing but cliches. That movie is nothing but cliche. But anyway, I don't like that movie. But,
You don't like the Karate Kid?
I like that movie. I love that movie. I grew up on that movie. But it's cliche. Anyway,
okay. I don't like that movie. 2 seconds later. No, I like that movie. I love that movie.
I said I like that movie.
Oh, okay. I thought you said I didn't.
No, I love that movie. I grew up on that movie. Anyway, no, the Karate Kid's fantastic in the cliche way possible. Anyway, but so that song is nothing but cliches, and when you sit down and you read the lyrics and such, it's not that it conveys nothing. It's that it conveys nothing more than it conveys nothing more than the surface level of you're the best, but that doesn't mean anything more than that.
But the best at what?
Yeah, see, it doesn't mean anything more than that. It just means you're the best, but the best needs more than just that. There needs to be another statement to it. It's not that they're empty, it's that they're only partial.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, when I say they're empty, I mean that they don't say anything in and of themselves, so what's the point of having them?
It's not that they don't say anything, it's that they don't say enough by themselves.
Yeah, but it's like the word just in a sentence. You look at someone's paper, particularly high school students, they'll use the word just a lot. And it ends up just being, there we go, it ends up being a filler word. And cliches are filler sentences or filler statements. they might kind of roll off the tongue, which is why we tend to use them. But honestly, they don't add or take away anything. Or no, they do take away. They don't add anything substantial to what you're saying or what you're doing anyway. So there's no point in using them. So I'm going to go back to the word just. Most sentences that have the word just in them say the exact same thing if you take the word just out of them.
Yeah, it's the Stephen King war on adverbs kind of thing, of when you have an adverb in a sentence, all you're doing is confirming that you're not confident in what you wrote.
Yeah, fair enough. The cliches are very much the same way, as if you're writing with cliches in it, it's probably fluff writing. You don't need that there, get rid of it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. We probably don't want to belabor that point.
Well, let me just tie this back. So, all of that in mind, the phrase, "you had me at hello," becomes a cliche the second she utters it, because it's completely unnecessary, as you pointed out, because apparently the scene before builds to it.
It's not that it's unnecessary, because it's there so he doesn't have to continue his lecture and such. So it works in that scene. It's just a matter of it doesn't work anywhere but there.
I disagree. I don't think it works in that scene because, like I said, it makes me roll my eyes.
But again, you weren't really with the movie the whole time anyway, because it is one of those really generic cliche movies, and it's not in our wheelhouse.
That's part of it, but just...
Because I feel like if you were in that scene, if you were just...
It's not like it's not like I've not watched chick flicks and at least somewhat enjoyed them. I mean, I like 50 First Dates.
I still haven't seen that.
Really?
No, never seen it.
No, I mean, there are some chick flicks that I can watch, and, the comedy or whatever can get to me, or I can enjoy parts about them. But this, it just... Everything's so dull.
Yeah.
The characters are dull. The relationship is dull. It's so weird to make not a rom-com, because there's very little comedy in this movie. A rom-depress. That's what I'm going to call it, a rom-depress.
According to Wikipedia, it's a sports drom-com.
Okay, there we go. It's so weird to make a romantic sports movie, I guess, and have the romance be, I'm not going to say completely unnecessary to the story, but...
It's kind of unnecessary.
It's not completely, because, I mean, she's an accountant that we never see account.
You see her account once. When he's stealing the fish? After they have that weird awkward thing of he kisses her and he's drunk, the next day when they get to the office, he's giving them their financial reports. Okay. So we see her account once.
In like a 3 or 5 month period or whatever.
Yes.
No, so it's the romantic subplot is a subplot in a movie that seems to be focusing on the romance. Or it seems to be wanting to focus on the romance. It seems to be known because of the romance.
See, I think it's a little bit more ambiguous than that. I think what it is it doesn't know whether it wants to do the bromance with the sports side, or if it wants to do the romance. Because the romance is there to hammer home that point of conviction that this whole movie's been about the whole time. It just does it really badly. And then you keep undercutting it with, the friendship that those two guys are building, and then you never get back to her, and when you do get back to her, the friendship goes fast forward. So it doesn't know how to balance those two, and I'm not sure what's more important.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't believe this movie was nominated for Oscars.
Oh my fucking god.
Cuba Gooding Jr. won his first Oscar through this movie.
Well, he's about the only good thing in it, even though his character's written like shit.
Tom Cruise got Best Actor nomination for this? He got nominated for Best Screenplay?
What? See, this is why I don't listen to the fucking Academy. Every year the Academy Awards and the fucking Oscars, I'm like, go fuck yourselves. You picked the worst fucking movies.
I mean, sometimes they're good because we have just good years of movies, but no, the Academy is terrible at picking things.
Like, oh my god, what was it that
It was
won
nominated for Best Picture?
What?
And this is 1996. I am going to just really quickly check what came out in 1996 to see what we're comparing this to.
I mean, you know, it'd be funny as if it were 1997, because then we could have been like, why not fucking nominate Batman and Robin?
Fargo came out that year. The English Patient came out that year. The Crucible came out that year.
Right.
What else was that year? So essentially, it was a slow year.
Okay, fair enough. Now this is why it's shit like that makes me just say, fuck the Academy. God, they picked the worst fucking movies.
Yeah.
Fucking King's Speech. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't care for the King's Speech either. I mean, I don't know. I guess I can understand why this movie got attention when it's the same year as Barbed Wire. I feel like that's your level of slim pickings.
Oh my god, Barbed Wire. There's an episode of Geeky, gentlemen. Don't call me dumb. We can have Milan dress up in fishnets. Oh, that'd be...
God, no.
No, you don't want to see that?
No.
He'll do it.
No.
If I ask him, he will do it.
No, let's not.
And he'll send you pictures that will, like, just take over your computer screen at all times, and your parents will walk in the room and go like, no, don't look.
Well, we got the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet that year, so
I like that one.
that's good. We got Space Jam, we got First Contact.
Space Jam's a better movie than this.
It's a better nostalgia thing, because I can't really even judge that.
It's a better sports movie than this.
Yeah.
It's a better redemption story than this.
Yeah, so it was a slow year, essentially.
Fair enough. I don't know, like, I forgot what I was saying. No, it's just, it's weird for the romantic, like, subplot. Because, I mean, this seems, you know, you had me at hello, it's the big romantic, you know, there's the big speech at the end to win her back and everything. Alright, fuck it, I don't care. I'm gonna take us off again, because otherwise we're never gonna get out of this.
Yeah, well, we should get past the line at some point, though, because there's a couple of other things we should talk about.
Oh, no, I'm way past the line. I'm just talking about, like, other shit at this point.
Okay, cool.
So if I ever get, like, millions of dollars, there are a couple different things I want to do. One is direct and write an episode of Criminal Minds where the team is hunting Milan as the unsub. And it just breaks them all apart and breaks them down to children crying in the corner. is I want to make a romantic comedy that's just full of nothing but cliches left and right. It's just like an hour and a half of just fucking awfulness. It's just regurgitated studio trash.
So essentially, you want to write an episode of Smallville.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but like romantic comedy kind of cliches.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a Smallville.
No, those are more soap opera. But not just all the awful rom-com cliches. And then at the end, there's going to be, you know, the female lead's going to be getting married to the practical choice guy as opposed to the male lead. And he's going to, even though he's more attractive, and he's going to walk into the church at the last minute when the priest says, does anyone here object to why these two should not be wed? And the guy's going to walk in, and he's going to give the best goddamn rom-com speech you've ever heard. He's going to, like, talk about all these amazing things, and he's going to have one of those big sticker lines, right? And then he's going to be like, so please, take me back. And the woman's going to look at him and be like, fuck off, and then credits.
Oh, no. I've
told Bobby my plan about this before. He had one suggestion for me, and that's make sure it's not your first movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, what I was getting to, we have a movie that seems to be so seems to really try to be that romantic kind of thing where the romance seems like it's really important. But honestly, you can cut the romance out, and it's probably a better movie.
I wouldn't say it's better, but it'd be more focused.
Yeah.
Because the romance, there's an element of that's there for the character work. It's just there's not enough balance to it. Part of this movie is also that Cuba Gooding Jr. is fine in the movie. He's good enough. He's fun. He's energetic. You don't like him at first. You grow to like him later or whatever. But everyone else just doesn't have a good performance.
Except for Jay Moore. Jay Moore does awesome work.
Yeah,
I love Jay Moore.
He's fine. Everyone else is really just phoning in as a 90s romantic comedy kind of thing. Renee Zellweger does nothing that isn't just Renee Zellweger in a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Everyone in this movie is just really, really, I don't want to say bad, but they're so lifeless. And Tom Cruise is not a good actor, I get that, but there are certain things Tom Cruise can do. He doesn't even
jump
do
on
that.
Couches. Yeah, I agree. Cuba's the most fun to watch, if nothing else. You know who he reminded me of in this?
Sure.
Like, especially that first scene when he's, like, yelling on the phone.
What do you remind you of?
Chris Rock.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
Either Chris Rock or, what's his name? He was in, Chris Tucker.
From Rush Hour.
Yeah. Rush Hour, and just to, give myself some street cred, Friday.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen Friday?
I know everyone here loves that movie. I've never seen it.
Yeah, everyone here being...
Everyone in North/South Carolina, depending on what month it is.
Oh, okay.
Because I switch those states very often. Anyway.
No, it's fine. It's just, Friday's a fun series of movies. It's
I've heard that.
It's wacky comedy stuff. It doesn't take itself seriously, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. I've heard it's fine. I just haven't gotten around to seeing it.
Yeah. It's very quotable. Is what makes it so much fun. It's not a movie to watch on your own. It's a movie to watch with your black friends. So if you don't have black friends, acquire some black friends.
I've got numerous.
Okay, so what you should do is you should, like, leave the call, go over to one of your black friends' houses, just be like, hey, let's watch Friday, and they'll be like, I don't own Friday, and then, like, you gotta test them to make sure that they're actually black, so have them sing the Jeffersons theme song. If they don't know it by heart, then just walk out. It's a trap. I'm just being really racist at this point, because I think it's funny.
Yeah, that was last week. You missed the train on that joke, man.
Oh... Come on, that was fun. No, that's a joke. I've been wanting to do a sketch with Phil for a while, where I just want to be like, hey, sing the Jeffersons theme song. I feel like hearing it, and he'll just be like, I don't know the Jeffersons theme song. I'm like, but I thought all black people knew the Jeffersons theme song by heart. And I just want to go around to different places in Fort Wayne where there are a lot of black people and just get them all to sing the Jeffersons theme song and make Phil feel bad about himself.
Well, importantly, it's not just Jeffersons. If they don't know that, they might know the Different Strokes one.
So I don't know different... Wait, no, I do know Different Strokes. I gotta relearn the Sanford and Son.
I haven't seen that show in years.
I just watched it the other night. It was so fucking funny.
God, I haven't seen it since I was like 5.
They were getting held up in a bank, and it was so funny.
So back to this. Back to Jerry Maguire.
Sure. I'm distracting tonight. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I feel like there's a lot of other things that we need to talk about that stem from this movie, and so maybe we should just get to the heart of the reason of why I think this is interesting to talk about. Because I hate sports movies. I don't care about sports movies. I've never seen a sports movie in my life that I didn't like. That I did like. I mean. No. I've seen a lot of them, and I just don't like any of them. I don't like this one very much either. It's fine, but I don't like it very much.
Not even Titans?
I don't like Titans.
Really?
Something about camaraderie through beating each other up on a playing field doesn't get to me.
Okay.
But no, okay. So here's part of why I wanted to talk about this. Tom Cruise is always kind of a sports guy in most of his movies. It's just a part of his personality that always gets carried over. For better or worse. It was fine in A Few Good Men, but it was distracting. So, sports and geekdom are two things that don't naturally go well together, and that's why you kind of scratched your head when I picked this movie last time, is that it just seems so counter to geeky.
No, I didn't even realize it was a sports movie when you picked it. I knew Tom Cruise was in it, and I had no idea what it was about.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, Tom Cruise, I feel like, is geeky enough on his own.
Okay.
Anyway, So the sports thing is something I want to talk about. I want to talk about sports and geeks, because I feel like there's a strange mindset of there are two different things. There are two separate, mutually exclusive things. I don't know how true that is. Have you ever seen Psych?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the time.
There's that episode of Psych where they go to one of their friends from high school or college or whatever it is, and he's like this really big sports jock guy with an extremely attractive girlfriend and all of that. But he's a closet geek. And they borrow all of his geek stuff and break it and such.
He's not only a closet geek. This dude's like the Batman of closet geeks. Like, he literally has like a bookcase that spins around to reveal all his geeky stuff.
It's fantastic. And the ending of that episode is that he confesses it to his girlfriend or wife or whatever it is, and then turns out that she's a geek as well. And that's strange, because back when that came out, that was funny because you wouldn't see it coming, and you'd think the other thing would happen if she leaves him. How true is that now? Because I feel like this movie, it's not a very good one, but sports in this movie is it's that perpetuated violent cynicism thing that started as something more simple, as something more pure, and something more enjoyable. And that's his character arc, and that's the Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character arc, and that's what sports is. It's more of an idea than it is just let's root for a team. And I haven't seen that very much at all, but I think it's an idea that warrants some discussion.
So the nature of, like, I guess I'm having a hard time, like, summarizing your point in my head. And I don't want to straw man. So I'm trying to, like, narrow it down a little bit, because it's kind of like a broad point you're making.
Yeah, because it's something that never gets talked about, so it's even hard. It's hard to even point out the occasions of where you can talk about it, because it's like, really, how often have you seen geeky guys on a geeky channel doing a geeky show, and they're talking sports? I think the answer for me is
this show, I guess. Because I've talked about sports before. I
mean, talk about sports is one thing, but like interrupting your conversation about like Suicide Squad casting, or this guy's leaving this book or something to talk about sports. Like, when have we ever segued into sports?
I think I did briefly at one point, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, it's a rare thing, is just my point. I mean, it's nothing against the guys that do it, it's just a matter of, like, it's a rare thing.
Mm-hmm.
And considering how mainstream geekdom has become, is it less so now?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Because I've walked in the comic shop and there are guys wearing, Superman t-shirts and guys wearing Peyton Manning jerseys.
Okay, I've never had that.
Well, make my point even clearer. All right, so we haven't talked about this, Steve, but how comfortable are you saying the city that you live in?
Perfectly fine.
Okay, what city do you live in?
Charlotte.
Okay. How many comic shops do you have in Charlotte?
Tons.
Okay, so you got a lot. All right. Then you don't work to my example. So let's pretend that you live in a city comparable to the size of Fort Wayne.
Well, I mean, when I'm home, I live in Orangeburg, and that has no comic shops, and the closest one is 45 minutes away.
All right, that's a better example.
Okay.
Then. All right, let's go with that. Okay, so you live in Orangeburg, fairly normal-sized city?
Yeah.
Like, not huge or anything?
It's pretty small, but yeah.
All right, so Fort Wayne's probably slightly bigger than that, but no big deal. Fort Wayne has 4 comic shops. 2 of them are owned by the same guy. One of them's owned by a different guy. One of them's like a national chain. And that's crazy when you think about how many towns the size of Fort Wayne have no comic book shops. Now, one of them, Clem's, which is the only one that's like its own thing entirely, is called Clem's Collectibles. And they sell comics, geek collecting stuff, t-shirts, toys, all that good stuff. And that's half of their business. You know what the other half of their business is?
What's that?
Sports collectibles. Jerseys, boxing gloves that have been signed, all that kind of stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's in the same shop. And like, this is my argument for why your point seems like it's right, but it's wrong. Because, like, you hear that and you're like, no, that doesn't sound right at all, but Clem's been around fucking years. So, you know, they've been near each other. Like, at first I think Clem's might have been started by, like, a jock, like a bully jock, and he was like, wait, if I stock comic books, then the nerds will come to me and I can beat them up there.
I feel like I wasn't thinking that at all.
No, it's just my joke.
Okay.
No, but, like, it seems like it's such a weird thing to have both of those kinds of, like, fields of interest together. Because, you know, for a while, they were the only place in town where you could go to sell baseball cards.
Yeah, and that's part of my point is that
you wouldn't think it, but it's actually a fairly natural thing because both of them serve the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like whether you collect sporting cards and go to a lot of games or collect comic books and go to conventions, it's effectively the same thing.
Oh, it's entirely the same thing. That's why I think geekdom's become as big a part of culture as it has lately, because we're finally getting mainstream accessible things that are good. Baseball wouldn't be, or no, baseball's a terrible example because it's dying.
Poor baseball. I don't even like baseball, but
well, I was going to say this a minute ago, but you kind of crushed my opportunity. So my entire life, my dad tried to get me into sports. It did not take at all. Oh my god, I was like the worst kid when it came to that thing. He signed me up for like fucking t-ball lessons or t-ball, and like it's not that I wasn't so bad that like I couldn't fucking hit the t-ball or anything. But I was awful. Like they put me in the outfield and I'd just fucking stand there and look around, and whenever the ball came to me, I wouldn't even get close to catching it. No love for sports at all when I was a kid. Couldn't give two fucks. Was on soccer too. That was so fucking boring. But then recently, sorry that my dad couldn't be here to see that, but I got a job at a news station. And because we, shoot the news and broadcast live, we have to be in the studio when there's a baseball or a football game on that's going into our hour, because if it doesn't eat up our whole hour, then we have to be ready to go on to fill the rest of the hour, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. There is nothing better to get you into sports than getting paid to see whether or not you're going to have to work.
I mean, you've explained that story before, and it makes sense.
I just don't know if I'd explain it on air, and like that's just the thing that's finally gotten me into sports. Is like, dude, I used to not know shit about baseball. Now I can tell you how fucking innings work, and I can give you estimates about how long an inning's going to take and which teams are have the biggest rivalries and stuff, because I figured it all out watching, hoping to God that they would eat up my whole hour. So I would get paid. And my running joke now, whenever my mom wants to watch a football game or something, is I have a going rate of about $9 an hour to watch football. So, Dad, if you're listening to this, and since I'm an atheist, you're probably not, but if you're listening to this, you should have paid me to play sports. I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more.
That's hilarious. I think part of what goes with this is you look back at the first Spider-Man movie, because that's the first thing that comes to my brain, and we talked about it earlier, and that's not where we are at all anymore. There's cliques, and there's jocks, and there's geeks, and there's nerds, and everything's like this weird 60s clean, your worlds don't touch kind of thing. We don't have that at all. But it still feels like we do for some reason.
Well, I think it's TV's fault that it feels like we do, because I know with my experience at least, and I've run into a lot of people that have had the same experience, so I'm curious if you did. When I went from elementary school to middle school, everyone acted the exact way that you see them that you see high school kids act, where there's like very clearly defined cliques, and there's, you know, the jocks, the bullies, the nerds, all that stuff. That was all a thing, and I wasn't I wasn't into comics or anything at that age, so I was very outcast, so I just had this weird observer role. Like, I didn't belong to any one clique. I had my friends and everything, but there was no clique that I fit into, but there were a lot of clique groups and stuff like that. And it was very much just like high school, like how you see high school portrayed, rather. And then I went from middle school to high school, and it suddenly just all went away. Like, there was so much more blending and bleeding and everything that it just changed completely. Like, a couple of my friends in high school were football players, and I had a couple friends in band, and it was just this weird change that happened.
Yeah, and I wonder how far we can backtrace that to see if it works, because I feel like we're one of the last generations to have that. I think if you go into middle school now, it probably wouldn't be that way. And it would be more like what high school actually is, where the cliques are not defined.
Maybe. I don't know what it is. I think everyone went into middle school expecting it to be like high school, and their only exposure to high school was, you know,
what's on TV,
fucking television. And so by the time they got done with middle school, they're all just so fucking sick of that they just got over it, and that's how high school became just a normal thing. And I'm wondering if it's secular at all. Like, if it'll come back to being, like, clearly defined cliques and all that stuff, or not.
Yeah. And see, this is another reason I wanted to talk about this movie, is Tom Cruise is a gigantic sports guy, but when you see him do stuff like Mission Impossible and Edge of Tomorrow and stuff, and you watch him in interviews, he's also a giant geek. He plays video games, he reads comic books and stuff like that, too. It's just...
But Steve, he reads comic books because he thinks they're the Bible.
I mean actual comic books, you know, the ones that are good. But no, I mean, he is a geek, and you didn't get that from him in interviews, and he didn't express that until after we got into like the early 2000s shift, and geek stuff started becoming more mainstream. And it's interesting because he's kind of I don't really enjoy his performances ever. I don't think he's a good actor. I don't think he's an interesting person. But he's sort of like the best example, the best figurehead for what's going on.
I disagree with that because he's in a cult.
And he's also a testament to our other point earlier of being into sports and being into comic books is effectively the same thing.
Yeah, it is, because, I mean, it's that same energy that drives you. Like, I mean, I can sit there, I mean, we fucking did it before we started recording. Or no, before we started the episode, rather.
Because we're always recording.
Yeah, just in case something gold happens.
Yeah, it's like Big Brother.
Yeah. No, we're talking about fucking, you know, all this continuity stuff with comic books and, like, what this means and what's going on with that. And, like, I'm sitting here explaining the plot of a Green Lantern book, and it's, you know, it sounds like complete fucking insanity. I remember one time Bill and I were having a conversation off recording, and Milan was there, and it was about Doctor Who, and we're talking about Madame Vastra, the lesbian lizard woman.
She's awesome.
And yeah, who's an awesome character, and Milan doesn't watch Doctor Who. He's just like, I should fucking watch Doctor Who because this sounds like the most amazing thing ever, but I have no idea what you're talking about. I just heard lesbian lizard woman.
Yeah, and I mean, you see people, they get together in giant huddles to watch big games, and they scream, and that's exactly what we did when Avengers came out. And it's not that different.
I mean, you hear people talk sports, and they're like, you know, they speak their own language almost. There's all these, you know, it's that lingo, that terminology that gets thrown around. It's the same thing with comic books.
Yeah, and it's to this point where if you know one, it's not that you can't know the other. And there was a very clear point where that was the case. Of people read comic books because they weren't good at sports, or they didn't enjoy it, or they weren't the smartest in school and stuff like that. And that's kind of where they found their stride. But now it's not that at all. And it's thriving still.
Well, I wouldn't say comic books.
Well, I mean, superheroes and such, geeky things, like movies and such, so...
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is the movies have not translated to the books, which is a problem.
Well, the success hasn't.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
The tone has.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not.
No, that's a whole other thing of issues we could talk about, but...
Yeah, but I'm just talking about, like, the success of the movies has not transferred to the books, and that's a problem, whereas with sports movies, I feel like sports movies are successful because sports are successful. I don't feel like sports are successful because we have sports movies, you know? Yeah. And this might be a different topic, but I think it's worth, like, talking about briefly at least.
Sure, yeah.
That's just a thought that occurred to me, is, like, you got, you know, even the comedic sports movies like Major League, which is a sports
The Sandlot?
Yeah, Sandlot's a great movie. Though I don't know if it's a sports movie.
I mean, technically it is.
Well, I mean, in that the characters play a sport,
exactly.
yes, but it's also a dog movie if you're going to go with that parameter.
It is technically.
It's a lot of things, then. Sorry, quick side note. You ever seen The Sandlot 2?
Yes.
I love that scene with the girl throwing the ball and just completely, like, striking the dude out, and he has no idea what happened.
Oh, I know. People hate that movie for some reason, but I grew up with both of them at the same time, so I don't care.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's just a weird thing that sports movies seem to just be an extension of sports, yet comic book movies seem to be their own thing from comic books.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why the comics haven't become successful.
And I feel like we might start to see that change a bit, because this might date this video a little bit, but Star Wars #1's coming out pretty soon, the comic, and it's expected to sell over 1 million copies.
Star Wars #1. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, the comic's coming out, and it's expected to sell over 1 million copies, and trade sales, not individual issues, because that's what always would count, but trade sales have always been on the rise. Constantine's not doing good on the ratings, but the Hellblazer comics that they're reprinting are doing fantastically compared to when they first came out. So this might just be a matter of it takes longer with comics because they're harder to find. Like, comic book stores don't grow on trees the way you can turn to any channel and watch sports.
That's true.
But so it might just be a longer process, but I think it's there. And again, this is part of why I want to talk about it, because I feel like this movie started a lot of cliches, and you look back on it, and it's not the best thing in the world, but it does provide like a good pinhole in history of this is where we were versus where we are now. Because if you realize, like, if you watch romantic comedies now, they can't help but do geeky things. Like, one of the main partners is always kind of a geeky person. Mm-hmm. And that's not this at all. This is absolutely the opposite of that. And this is where that sort of shifted.
Well, I mean, the geeky character in this is the fucking babysitter.
Yeah, and he's a butt of jokes.
And he's a jazz geek, which, once again, don't make fun of jazz people.
Yeah, and if you watch a romantic comedy now, like any one, the guy or the girl, one of them is going to be into geeky things, and that's where the charm comes in.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, it's weird to do that because it's not like geeky things are the underbelly of society they used to be.
Yeah, and they used to be, and I feel like we shouldn't be ashamed to say that because it was. It was.
No, I was
trying to think
of a different way to say it that didn't sound so dirty. Because it made it sound like prostitution.
Well, I mean, there was a time where if your mom caught you reading comic books, you could, it could be the worst punishment of your life. You could get expelled from school for having comic books in your backpack.
Really?
There was a time where it might as well have been illegal. I mean, it wasn't that extreme, but it was pretty extreme. It was, comic books are terrible things and we should burn them, and they did literally burn them.
And they lost money.
Yes, they did.
There's that whole interview with John Lennon where he said the Beatles are bigger than Jesus, and everyone took it the complete wrong way. in the South, and they organized the Beatles memorabilia burning.
Well, I mean, of course
piles.
they're bigger than Jesus. They're 4 people.
Yeah.
That was a terrible joke.
No, it was good. It was good. That's the clip right there. No, but so they organized the big Beatles burning piles, and someone took the footage of one of the burning piles and looked at each thing that they could determine in the pile before it had turned to ash, and they estimated the value of it, and people probably burnt $6 million if I remember the value correctly.
Oh wow!
Yeah, crazy when you think about it.
Insane, yeah.
Someone looked at how much this original lunchbox or whatever was worth, and how much this poster was worth now, and it's just crazy expensive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you know that following this movie, part of what was attached to this movie when it came out on VHS and what was coming out in theaters right after this was Men in Black and Starship Troopers. And they were advertised with this movie, and I think that's another... this is a weird movie to review, but it's got so many weird historical parallels to talk about there.
Do you think that... We've talked about how geekdom and sports fandom are coming from the same place.
Yes.
Do you think that it's a sense of... I don't want to sound too much on my high horse here, but do you think it's a sense of evolving culture? Because sports are obviously a lot more primal in their attraction. You're like, yeah, hit him, knock him down, or yeah, steal the thing, run, do the thing, move. That's what the sports fan yells at the television. It's very there's no logic to it, but the comic fandom is, oh my god, yeah, you hit a guy, but there's also a certain level of intellectualism. Even the most, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, even the most ridiculous fanboy argument has some level of intellectualism to it, because they are arguing, they're making arguments. How good those arguments are a different thing entirely.
I think what it is, and I don't want to. I want to word this carefully because we don't want to bash sports or anything.
No,
I think
at all.
what it is with comics, those two things can't really be separated. Somebody hits a guy, but it's in the context of a story, and there's things surrounding it, and there's issues by it, and you discuss that whether it's a good discussion or bad. It's a discussion. With sports, the enjoyment is that primal thing. And the argument is when you start talking with other people about records and statistics and deductions of this guy's this old and he can't do this and yada yada yada, and you start comparing them to histories and such. But those two things are separated. And with comics, it's not. There's a very clear bridge that you have to cross between discussing sports intellectually and watching sports, despite them being connected. And with comics, it's all bundled into one. You can't really take one without the other.
Yeah, but what I'm asking, I guess, is do you think that comics are just more intellectual in their own... do you think that it's a sign that more and more people are getting into the comic style of things?
Because people are getting smarter.
Yeah. Which is a strange thing to say, because I don't think it's true.
I don't think people are getting smarter, necessarily. I feel like we just have more information and access to more information. And so reading is not a bad thing it used to be. Reading is no longer you have to drive to the library and do nothing with it for 4 hours. Reading is surf the internet. And you just kind of naturally gravitate towards that, and it's a bit easier. So yeah, I don't think it's...
Yeah, because, I mean, it is like, how do you get a monkey to type? Just give him a typewriter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not necessarily that we're getting smarter, but it's certainly getting easier to be smarter, and I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, but then when you run into the problem of people confusing knowledge with intelligence...
Yeah. I mean, I just wrote a paper on Aristotle. I can go to a whole thing about that, but...
Yeah, we should talk about one of my coworkers. So, like, I make a joke that the lottery is a tax for people that don't understand how probability theory works. It's a joke. I don't understand how probability theory works, but I understand there's a thing about probability. I understand the basics of it. But I make that joke, this motherfucker I work with, who, by the way, I work at Goodwill, he is learning disabled, is the correct term for it. He's not retarded, I mean, obviously, but he's learning disabled. I make that joke, and he knows it's a joke. But just to try to prove that he's smarter than me, he asked me some, like, particular thing that's, like, only someone who's researched probability theory would know. And it's probably, like, a really basic thing, but he still asks me. I'm like, I don't know what that is, Tim. He goes, well, then why you say you understand probability theory? I'm like, fucking shut up. My God, knowing a fact that I don't does not make you smarter than me, you jackass. It makes you a jackass.
Oh, that's funny.
Sorry, rant mode.
No, that's fine. That's hilarious.
That shit just, oh my God.
But no, I mean that's kind of to the point we were making of access to more information. That's a big thing with this sort of stuff. If you're on Twitter, whether you're an all sports kind of guy, an all politics kind of guy, or all cooking channel kind of guy, it's hard to avoid the constant Twitter parades of comic book news.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Facebook, same with LinkedIn, same with any other social media you use for anything. Well, not so much LinkedIn, a little bit LinkedIn. But yeah, it's...
Can I just interrupt real quick?
Sure.
People, stop inviting me to LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is awesome.
Go on.
Anyway, but no, it's a matter of there's so much more to digest at once now. And so the sports thing and the comic book thing blending just seems, I guess it is a lot more natural than we thought it would be. Because before it was you huddle around your radio or you huddle around your TV, and now you're just relaxing and you're starting to get infused with things that you didn't necessarily want to know.
Yeah, and I think there's like a certain crossover at all points. Because, I mean, not to make it too sexist, but to make it too sexist, there's a joke I haven't used in a while. Every little boy loves two things: Superman and their dad.
Very true.
And their dad likes football, so they like football. Or their dad likes baseball, so they like baseball. Whatever the fucking sport it is he likes.
My dad likes cricket.
Do you like cricket? Did you like cricket when you were a kid?
Hell fucking no.
Really?
I hate cricket.
No, when you were a kid.
When I was a kid, I hated cricket even more.
Okay, fair enough. No, but like, I'm talking little kid. Though.
No, yeah. I was raised very differently than the traditional way of what we're discussing. But I see your point anyway.
Well, like, you're a little kid, you're hanging out with your dad in the room, he's watching football, he starts shouting and cheering, you jump up, start shouting and cheering. That's what a lot of kids do.
Yeah, learning by copying that behavior.
Yeah, so, like, they start to fall in love with football, and it's a matter of which one they fall in love harder with over time. And so some kids go on to continue to read Superman and get into, book learning and stuff. Because, Superman retells a lot of stories in a lot of ways about heroes and myths and stuff. So they get really interested in fantasy, or they get really interested in folklore. And so they go on and they get more and more interested in the academic side of things. Or, you get more into sports and you just start getting really interested in physical things. You start working out because you want to be like that. And keep in mind, this is completely non-scientifically based. This is my armchair psychology, if you will.
Well, no, it's very general. It's very broad. It doesn't apply to everyone, but it still applies.
Yeah, like it's not hard to imagine, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you went out and tried to study this, you could prove it to a certain extent.
Yeah. That's all I try to do. Just vague possibilities.
Make something up that has to be true, whether or not you know it. Anyway.
Philosophy.
Metaphysics.
No, but so like, I think that they come from a very similar place because Superman's just cool on his own, especially for a little kid before, logic becomes a thing for him. Before you get a chance to overthink Superman's just cool. You just see him fly and it's like, oh my god, that's so cool. And that's where a lot of like old mythic heroes come from too. It's just, oh wow, that's so amazing. Just that sense of awe gets inspired. And then sports is an imitation in reality of the sense of awe to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to see Superman fly back in the day when it's a cartoon. It's another thing to see, a man, I don't know, hit a ball across a stadium out of the bleachers. You can't do that. Those are like comparable to you at that point. When you're a very little kid.
Right.
I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I feel like I'm making some kind of
No,
point.
I see what you're saying. There's a sense of belonging in both of them. You could probably see a correlation of the guy that continues to read Superman is the one that spends less time with his dad just out of circumstance. And the one that spends more time with their dad probably ends up being the one that's closer to the sports thing. And it's a matter of what fills a void, what fills a role for you. Except now, that void is very different. It's not a matter of if your dad's not home, you can't call him. It's not a matter of you can't watch sports because you don't have cable. Everything is there at once. And so you every kid grows up loving their dad and loving sport and loving Superman, but they don't have to divide anymore. Because there's nothing that's forcing that. Because before you'd have to admit it was a matter of like your dad goes to work, so you're not going to watch sports if your dad's not home. You're going to read Superman. But now you could do it either way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a paradigm kind of thing, and I feel like we live in a very weird generation. Because a couple years ago, things would have been far more clear, and a couple decades ago, things would have been more clear, and a couple decades from now, things will be more clear.
You think it'll go back? No,
not go back. It's just what we're describing will make more sense 20 years from now.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Like, we won't be living the history, and it will be more definitive. Like, you didn't understand necessarily what was going on in 1919, but you did in 1922.
Yeah.
Like jumping from World War II to the Roaring Twenties. We don't necessarily know what's going on in 2014 the way we would have in 1999, or we will in, 2025.
Yeah, I gotcha. Assuming we're all alive and not, ruled by the cockroach leaders that Obama put into power.
I love how that joke comes right after we had that show where we're all pretty liberal leaning.
Oh, I mean, dude, it was amazing. Today at work, we were going through carts, and, like, I'm not, like, one of those president bashers or anything, but every so often I gotta give those guys props when they come up with some clever shit. Someone made Obama toilet paper.
That's fantastic.
It was hilarious, and I was, like, telling one of my friends about it. He goes, I gotta admit, that's really harsh. I'd be pretty mad if someone made CJ toilet paper.
No, that's harsh as all hell, but doesn't mean it's not funny.
I saw that today, and that just made me laugh.
So I don't know where else we want to go with this.
I want to talk just a little bit more about the movie
okay, sure.
itself before we wrap up. So, like, a thought that I had, because I was like, the first half hour of this movie, I was like, why did Steve pick this movie? Why did Steve pick this movie? And for a moment, I thought I had it. I thought it was going to be like all current event shit, because there's that really good scene with the kid and his dad in the hospital and all that.
Oh, the concussion thing, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh wow, this is actually going to be a movie like that deals with all that back in the 90s. That's crazy. Yeah, this will be like totally relevant and everything. Nope.
It does one thing with that, but it wasn't the important thing you could have done.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, so that's not why Steve picked this movie. All right.
My thinking with this movie was far more outside of this movie than it was inside.
Oh, I can tell now. No, now it makes much more sense. But while I was watching, I'm like, why the fuck did he pick this movie?
I mean, I gotta admit, I'm not one for romantic comedies at all, but there's something about the big, powerful guy that loses everything and learns what life's about that I enjoy. Maybe that's why I love Christmas Carol movies so much. Like, I hate Kevin Smith movies, but I love Jersey Girl. And that's exactly what this is, except with a music guy.
Okay. No, I like, I like some scenes in this movie. I like Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character. Yeah, he's entertaining to watch, and, you know...
He won an Oscar for that role. I don't know why he was up for it, but he won it.
Like you said, it's slim pickings, man.
Yeah, I mean, Barbed Wire. It says it all right there.
Did Barbed Wire get nominated for anything?
I don't know, but if it did...
Besides a Razzie?
That movie is so bad, it's fun.
Oh, yeah. No, but Cuba Gooding Jr. is fun to watch in this. Who plays his wife? It was driving me crazy, and I forgot to look it up.
Cuba Gooding Jr.'s or Tom Cruise's?
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Okay, it is Regina King.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's the voice of Huey and Riley. That's funny.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Okay.
I liked his whole thing because, like, his character's a little inconsistent in that he's like, I want people to, you know, be amazed by me, be respected. I want people to love me. I want to be like that, you know, football player that represents the whole team. And then he doesn't act like that at all. I'm like, you realize you're saying one thing, but you're doing something else. And like, he yells at Tom Cruise, "You want me to dance?" I'm like, well, dude, you just said what you want. And that's what you're gonna have to do if you want that.
Yeah,
if you want to be that person, you have to be that person.
He never dealt with the fact that he has to change. But his whole thing of he's completely in it for the money and he's not in it for the game is something that could have also done more developed.
Well, no, because the thing is, like, they're so inconsistent about whether or not he's in it for the money or the game.
Well, I don't think they're inconsistent with that at all. I think the entire movie, all he says is, like, I want my contract, I want my money, I want my contract, I want my money. And Tom Cruise is always telling him, no, you gotta be in it for the game, you gotta be in it for the game. They just never resolve that.
See, I think it was, like, I think the money thing's there, but I just think that, like, he says he wants to be, you know, the guy everyone looks up to.
When did he
wants
say
to be, what's the word he invents? When he invents that word, that's when he says it.
Quan?
Well,
Quan just means, like, he gets love and money's the big one.
Yeah, but he talks about wanting to be the face of the team.
He said he wanted to be the face of the community, but then he says all wrapped together with money.
Maybe I just put more into it than I realized.
Yeah, I can tell, like, this is one of those movies where you were kind of grasping for things, because it's definitely not for everybody.
Yeah, I was just trying to, like, anything. Man.
Yeah, in the first minute, it's not that great of a movie, but it's got some sort of historical importance.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. It gives us an awful line that will live in infamy.
I don't think it's going to live in infamy, but it's going to live in cliche heaven.
The cliche heaven, which is infamy.
I think I'm kind of out of things to say at this point.
Okay, just let me get one more final thought out there real quick. Because I'm just going through things in this movie that I kept thinking of.
Sure. We should have taken notes.
Yeah, so that kid, there's that scene where, like, the kid is in the U-Haul, and he's like, just go. I'm like, the kid, Tom Cruise isn't the one leaving, it's your mom, what the fuck?
Well, he's a kid, he doesn't really get that. It's just a matter of, like, he's not going to be with the father figure he wanted. I can understand that.
I don't know. I didn't think that made much sense because, like, if it had been Tom Cruise leaving the house, that would have been one thing. But I mean, clearly this is your mom's decision.
Yeah, but I mean, kids don't really necessarily get that.
Fair enough. I don't know. I didn't like the kid anyway.
He couldn't act at all.
He was chosen because he was like Macaulay Culkin with glasses.
He was like Christmas Story kid.
Oh yeah, okay.
He was a Christmas Story kid with spiky hair.
90s Christmas Story kid.
Yes, exactly. It's Christmas season. That's why I'm thinking of all these movies.
Yeah, I didn't like that kid.
All of the child actors in this movie were pretty bad. Like that opening kid that tells Tom Cruise to fuck off. Like, he was terrible.
Oh, I agree. Still a good scene.
No, it's a fine scene, but he is terribly acted.
Yeah.
I'm almost wishing now that this movie was about concussions, though. I feel like that's something that needs to be made at some point.
I would need to watch that League of Denial movie.
Is that what it's about?
Not a movie, it's a documentary.
Okay.
It's about the NFL, like, denying concussions and all that stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, like, the reason I thought you picked this was because we'd been running that story on the news, actually, about that Ohio State player, Kara George, his name is.
Yeah.
And that, it's, a kid that wrestled and played football, and he shot himself, and he sent a text to his mom saying, my concussion screwed up my head, or something like that.
Well, I feel like at that point, I might as well just pick radio.
Radio is about a kid that's already retarded.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like we could still have talked about it through radio better than we could have with this. Or any other movie I know, at least.
No, you want to know the only movie, and you're going to laugh when I say this. You want to know the only movie that deals with footballs and concussions and the attitude about them properly?
What movie?
Not Another Teen Movie.
Are you serious?
There's a running joke in that movie where one of Steve Rogers, I'm just going to call him.
Steve Rogers?
One of his, like, best friends on the football team, like, they keep bringing up this quote-unquote gag where it's like, careful, Jimmy, you only have 10 more concussions before you die. And everyone's still encouraging him to play football. I mean, that's the fucking issue right there.
No, it's seriously an issue, and there should be a movie about it.
And seriously, that's the only movie I can think of that properly addresses the whole concussions thing.
Well, evidently Will Smith is going to be starring in an NFL concussion thriller.
Oh, okay.
So, I just read that on the news. We'll see how that goes.
Maybe he'll be playing Deadshot.
I hope he doesn't play Deadshot. He's going to play Deadshot. He got cast. I don't want him to play Deadshot. Anyway.
I don't know, the concussion angle is an interesting thing to talk about, though.
Yeah, it was a really well-shot scene. I felt like everything that came out of that scene was very natural. It was just a matter of it went a completely different way.
Well, you see, if this movie had nuts, they would have paralyzed or did something awful to Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character. But I feel like in this kind of a movie, if you did that, then it would have just proved the protagonist wrong, and you would have learned nothing except the world sucks. What's wrong with that?
Do you really want to watch that? I mean, Steve, even the crow is like, it can't rain all the time.
Steve, what's wrong with telling people the truth?
But it doesn't... Never mind. I was going to say it doesn't suck, but...
I was talking to Alex one time, and he and I were discussing the differences in our philosophies and how we agree about a lot of things, but we have very fundamental differences in where we come from. And it's like, see, and you're like a cynic. You have, like, very little faith in people and stuff. And I cut him off, and he goes, and you like to lie to yourself, Alex. I
mean, I like to think that the world's not a great place, but people are good. But
so you like to lie to yourself.
I don't like lying. I'm not lying to myself. It's just a matter of...
Have you ever given people an opportunity to be good or fuck you?
There's many of those opportunities that have been available, yes.
Okay. It seems to me people always choose to fuck you.
Not always. That's the world. Anyway, we don't have to talk about that. But I feel like to make that movie depressing and end it on that note, it might have been more real. I just feel like it would have come out of nowhere, and I'm not sure if it would have worked.
I don't know. I just think it would have been more impactful because, part of the point he makes is that the what is it, SMI or whatever, the company he works for at the beginning, is pushing the players for the company's benefit as opposed to the players' benefit. And at a certain point in this movie, he's pushing Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character to do things that are not in his interest because they're in the main character's interest.
There's a couple of that, but they deal with that as well. They
do deal with it, but that would have kind of cemented it.
Yeah,
and would have made it not a cliche. Because, like I said, I called everything in this movie.
No, and I see why you say that. It's just a matter of if they did do that, if they had the guts to do that, then the most consistent thing to do with Jerry Maguire at the end of the movie is kill himself. That would have been his state after that happened. There's nothing else he could have done but killed himself.
I wouldn't have seen it coming. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, I'm just saying, if we take this to its logical extreme, we're not logical extreme, to its logical conclusion.
You got to remember one of my favorite movies is Melancholia.
Okay, fair enough.
So, you're not saying anything that bothers me.
I'm a fan of fatalistic storytelling and such, but still.
I'm okay with characters not getting what they want and not ending in a great place.
No, I get that. I love film noir, and noir is exactly that. But
yeah.
But I feel like there's a time and a place, and I feel like this just wouldn't have been it.
Fair enough. I don't know. This clearly wasn't what they were trying to do. I'm just saying, that would have been a more poignant. If you're trying to get the message that we need to do things and make a statement and try to change the system, then the way you want people to change the system is to show what happens when the system isn't changed.
I think maybe another way to do that, at least, is everything works out in the end, but Cuba Gooding Jr.'s guy doesn't take the contract. I feel like if they didn't do that, and then it was left as a discussion of, yeah, I got it, but what does that give me that I don't already have now that I've discovered that I love playing the sport? And I don't want to perpetuate yada, yada, yada. And then you just end the movie there of it doesn't matter what happens to Tom Cruise, whether or not he gets money or whether or not their family gets money, but they all understand where they're coming from and they all understand what their progression has been, and you end it there.
Fair enough.
Like Daredevil Born Again, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, man, I like depressing endings.
Fair enough.
I firmly believe that Toy Story 3 should have ended with all the toys burning.
Dude, the ending they got was just as depressing, though. The whole so long partner was a tearjerker.
No, it's not depressing because the toys survive, and that's not what happens to your toys when you give them away.
I never gave my toys away, so I don't know that feeling.
Good, because you know where I work? Goodwill.
Oh, yeah.
You know where all the toys that people give away to charities so that other kids can play with them and let them live on? You know where all those end up?
Where?
At the bottom of a big cart with a bunch of fucking cast iron pots thrown on the top of it so that they get crushed and broken.
That's depressing, dude.
I know, and I work and I see it every day.
There's a Pixar puppy lamp thing just following you around and slowly dying.
This is why we need Milan here for these things.
I would have loved to hear what he thought of this movie.
Me too. He probably just would have talked a lot about Cuba Gooding Jr. being half naked.
You see, something about that performance, though, it was really, really stereotypical for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of stayed in that vein, but they fleshed him out, and I kind of appreciate that.
I don't know if they fleshed him out because it takes a very dramatic turn. There's that 3-month gap, and it's just oh shit, we're friends now. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, they rushed it. I'm not saying they did it well, but at least it wasn't just the stereotypical.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. Let's do scores. You go ahead, go first.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not even sure what to give this movie. I would give this one 1.5 out of 5 should have been concussion thriller films.
Okay. I'm gonna give this movie 0.5 out of 5. Had me at hellos.
Had me at hellos. Okay, I should have gone for that.
Oh, man. Okay. Fun times. So apparently December on Geeky Gentleman is sports movie month. No, I'm kidding. It's really not. It's just going to happen to be that way 2 weeks in a row. We're done with theme months for a while.
We still should have done a Christmas movie month.
No, we shouldn't have, because then I would have had to watch some awful Christmas movies.
You could have watched Scrooged. Scrooged is awesome.
Scrooged is awesome, but then, like, Milan would have picked something in Russian.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, you didn't have to watch fucking Prince Vladimir.
Yeah, that's very true.
Anyway, so we're going to be watching 2 movies that Milan picked. These are boxing movies, or like prison fight movies or something like that, he said. Undisputed 2, Last Man Standing, and Undisputed 3, Redemption. We may watch the first one. I don't know. See if I can find them all.
They should hopefully be readily available.
I mean, it's not that hard to hunt down movies in the internet age.
It's not. It's just a chore.
Yeah. But you're like my substitute for Google, so, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. By the way, you can actually watch this movie on Amazon.
Oh, Undisputed?
Yes.
Okay.
And Google Play if you choose to buy it for $2.99.
Whatever. We'll figure it out. Oh, man.
This was fun.
Good episode. I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
I am too.
All the energy is left.
All the energy that was left has gone to those 2 fish that Tom Cruise kidnapped.
There was only one.
Was it 1 or was it 2?
It was 1. It was a big fish.
Oh, okay.
That's what I should have given it. I should have given it 0.5 flippers.
I just thought it was 2 really fat goldfish.
Nope, just 1 really big one.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So yeah, we should probably wrap up at this point. I feel like there's nothing else to say about this movie other than there's lots of Reebok product placement. Like, it's absurd. Every couple of minutes there's Reebok.
But Cuba Gooding Jr. says fuck Reebok.
He does, but man, there's a lot of Reebok.
Well, at that point in the movie, he's like not a cool dude, so, you know.
Yeah, you see, Reebok is for winners, not losers.
Yeah, anyway. By the way, if you'd like to sponsor Geeky Gentlemen...
I feel like Reebok is listening.
They probably are.
If you say so. Who's lying to himself now?
Oh, we got sponsors all the time. Like, fucking Donald Trump called me up and asked me for marketing advice.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did his toupee come with, or no?
No. His toupee actually has a mind of its own.
Okay.
It has gained sentience from leeching off of his brainwaves.
It must have taken centuries for that to happen.
Well, yeah, Donald Trump has been around since the dawn of time.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's almost Larry King.
God, why haven't I ended the episode yet?
Because Tom Cruise is saying this movie is absurdly long for no reason, and so is the episode.
Like, I wonder how long this episode... Well, no, because we talked for like almost an hour before we started the episode, so I was about to say, is this episode like commentary length?
We're almost there. If we were recording since the beginning of the call, we would almost be there.
Yeah, I know. We were. So, like, if we go for another 3 minutes, we'd be there, but the episode's not commentary length.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Drat. Oh, man.
Well, let's end this then.
No. We've got to, like, go around and make the same points again. Okay. Everyone, thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm the philosopher.
And I'm the politician.
And we're your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.